it's me, Kevin Smith. I've been a filmmaker for 31 years. I have not fucked with Letterboxd this entire time, man. I was told to stay away from it because my feelings would get hurt. I said, why? He said, you will cry. They hate you so much there. They're serious about their film, and they do not like Kevin Smith movies. So I must want to be selling my brand new old movie, Dogma, returning to screens on June 5th everywhere. Movie we made in 1999, celebrating its 25th anniversary. It's a necessary evil. In order for me to promote my movie, I have to go into the belly of the beast, kid. So here I am at Letterboxd to read reviews. Aspen writes, 4 stars. The most unrealistic part of this film was Bartleby, played by Ben Affleck, saying that he and Loki, played by Matt Damon, aren't gay when they had the most insane chemistry the entire time. Aspen, I don't disagree. I like to think of Dogma. A lot of people went after us, you know, religious people back in the day, protests. We got 400,000 pieces of hate mail and 3 death threats. And people were like, this movie's anti-Catholic. I didn't see it that way. I always saw it as the most homoerotic movie I've ever made. Jonathan Detrich gives 4 stars, says, Dogma was attacked by a lot of religious groups. He's not wrong. Which I just don't get. He's not wrong on that either. Because I find this to be one of the most faith-reaffirming movies ever made. He is not wrong. Jonathan Detrich nailed it, kids. This movie, what's embarrassing about Dogma is how insanely pro-faith it is. It has the cosmology of a child. A Catholic school child, but a child. It may take the piss out of the Catholic Church. It does. But it doesn't treat God as a joke. It really doesn't, man. Where was Jonathan Detrich back in 99 when here's a death threat I received. Ready? Memorized it. And mind you, there's some anti-Semitism coming, so brace yourself. You Jews better take that money you stole from us and start investing in flak jackets, because we're coming in there with shotguns. Signed, your brothers in Christ. That was a real fucking threat, man. So where was Jonathan Detrich with this fucking level-headed kind of like, hey, man, why is everyone upset? This movie's pro-faith. Back in 1999, I could have used you, Detrich. Detrich, you should be the new pope. Never mind the Chicago pope. Kieran, right here, writes 5 green stars. Fuck Jonathan Detrich with his 4 green stars. Fucking, my boy Kieran understands. 5. Large, man. 3rd Dogma watch, and it's nearly sold out theater, in a nearly sold out theater with Kevin Smith like God intended. Oh, I was there. This was recently in the Dogma Resurrection tour that I've been on for the last month and whatnot. Before the movie started, Kevin said that it was like a middle-aged chicken jockey, and I think everyone just needs to know that was said. I did, because the audiences were like loud. Every time a new character came on screen, they're like, ah! So I said, this is like middle-aged chicken jockey, but nobody gets egged. Remobo in a 3.5 star. He says, this is a real high school reunion film for me, where going back and watching it every 5 to 10 years serves up wistful breezes of nostalgia from seeing all of my old friends and hearing all my old catchphrases, but also painful reminders that that moment in time is standing still while I continue to get older. Let me tell you something. That's some good writing right there. You know what, Remobo? I'm writing the Dogma sequel as we speak. Don't be surprised if I fucking steal that line. And you won't get credit. Let me tell you something. I identify with this, Remobo, because I've been on tour with the movie for the last month, and it is like a high school reunion thing. I get to see some of my favorite people in the world back when they were crazy young. Matt Damon looks like Matt Damon's daughter in this movie. And then there are people that I love who are no longer with us, like the late, great Alan Rickman and George Carlin. And I get to see them every night come to life, and an audience greets them as if they're still there, as if they're still around practicing their craft. When I watch the movie night after night, I remember, oh, this movie was written and directed by somebody who believed in all this. That's why, as Jonathan Detrich points out, it plays as a very pro-faith movie. I'd gone to church my whole life, right? I'd been a Catholic school student for 8 years and an altar boy for 12 years. And it seemed like nobody ever celebrated their faith. They fucking mourned it. But I was having a good time because, number one, I was a pretty spiritual person. Number two, all these fucking stories are straight out of Marvel and DC. You know, they're just not wearing cool costumes and shit like that. It's all fights of good versus evil and shit. So I believed in this stuff in a big way, but I always thought the church seemed like people weren't happy to be there. And I always wanted to come up with a better idea for church. And that's what Dogma is. Dogma is a Sunday service with anal jokes in it so that it goes down smoother. Does that make sense? Nicholas Vargas says in a 4.5-star review, legendary Alan Rickman as Metatron, the voice of God, and a tequila fiend? Fuck yes, inject it into my veins, please. Nicholas, you give Pauline Kael a run for her money with film criticism. My goodness, that's poetic as fuck. Yeah, let me tell you, working with Alan Rickman was a dream come true. I didn't try to cast him in this movie. I wouldn't have done that. I loved him so much as an actor that I would never have put him in a Kevin Smith movie. He was too good for any Kevin Smith movie and shit. He reached out for us. Got a phone call one day from John Gordon, who worked at Miramax. He was our exec at the time. He goes, you'll never guess who came in today. I said, who? He goes, Alan Rickman. I said, Hans fucking Gruber was in the building? Did he blow that shit up or what? He goes, we were trying to get him to be in this new Merchant Ivory movie. I was like, did he say yeah? He goes, no. All he wanted to talk about was whoever directed Chasing Amy. I was like, I directed Chasing Amy. He's like, we should send him a script. And we did for Dogma. I said, he could be the voice of God. Fastest yes I ever got in my life from an actor outside of Jason Mewes, who says yes before you finish the title, was Alan Rickman. He got the script 2 hours later after reading. He called and he was like, I'm in. So beautiful.
How do I know you're an angel?
What, you mean aside from the fiery entrance and the expansive wingspan? You want more proof? Fine. How about a tequila?
Tay says, unfortunately, this is the most fuckable Ben Affleck has ever been. You sure that was Tay or written by Jennifer? I'm a huge Ben Affleck fan. I think he's been fuckable in every Kevin Smith movie. It's the other movies I'm a little sus about. You know what I'm saying? Would you fuck Ben Affleck in Changing Lanes? I wouldn't. Morally, he's dubious, to say the least. But in a Kevin Smith movie, oh my God, I would fuck Chasing Amy's Ben Affleck, Dogma's Ben Affleck. I mean, let's be honest, he would fuck me. I'm total bottom. Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back's Ben Affleck. Jersey Girl's Ben Affleck. Motherfucking Clerks 2's Ben Affleck. He's in it. And Clerks 3. Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, a movie that I made a few years ago, has a exquisite Ben Affleck monologue in it. Now, I say that because I wrote it, but he delivered it expertly. That's the Ben Affleck you want to fuck, kids. Never mind Dogma. I mean, yeah, he was young and hot and shit like that. But go watch him in Jay and Silent Bob Reboot when he talks about being a parent. It'd fucking make you cry. It's so beautiful. Vera Drew. I know Vera Drew. Vera Drew's a filmmaker. So this is me getting reviewed by another filmmaker. 3 stars. The fuck, Vera? You're supposed to look out for each other's backs. The Wizard of Oz, but Catholic, was the review. Not wrong. I remember when we were making the movie, I felt so special because I was like, this is one of the most original motherfucking movies ever made. Oh, they'll remember me from now until the end of time. I'm going to be the next Paul Thomas Anderson and Quentin Tarantino. All this shit, right? We're shooting outside the church in the 3rd act where the whole movie culminates. And Linda Fiorentino, who plays our lead, she was brilliant in The Last Seduction. Should have won an Oscar. Didn't even get nominated because Showtime aired it once before the movie went theatrical and Linda got fucked. Out of nowhere. We've been working together a month and change. I've known her at this point for 2 months from the pre and all that stuff. Linda goes, it's kind of like Wizard of Oz, isn't it? And I was like, oh, fuck! Dumbsville gives it 4 stars, says, fuck Harvey Weinstein for not giving Kevin Smith the rights to this masterpiece. This deserves to be preserved and not $100 on eBay. Harvey Weinstein personally bought this movie back in the day, kids. We were a part of Miramax. Miramax back then was owned by Disney. But back in the day, Disney wanted Oscars, and Miramax was very good at doing that. They were the A24 of their day, to coin a phrase. When they made Dogma, it was in the wake of a couple years after Larry Clark's Kids. Larry Clark's first movie, Rosario Dawson's first movie. But since Disney was like, we want no part of this movie, Harvey and Bob bought Kids, took it out, and made a fortune with it. So, I believe Dogma was made and approved, even though Michael Eisner, who was running Disney at the time, personally told Harvey Weinstein, you can't make that Dogma movie. We can't have trouble with the Catholics. Harvey made it, though, and I think he made the choice to make it because he knew that eventually Disney would be like, you have to give this up. And rather than what he did on Kids, paying for the movie to buy it back, I think he knew that he wasn't going to have to pay for the movie, that Disney would want this movie gone so bad, they'd be like, take it, get rid of it. Harvey Weinstein owned the movie personally for years, and I tried to get it back, and he wouldn't sell it to me. I offered $250,000 right before the 20th anniversary. The lawyer said no. I offered $500,000 lawyer said, no, that's all the money I could pull together, and that's me like I would have had to close Jay and Silent Bob's Secret Stash, the comic book store I've had open for like 28 years at this point. I reached out to some people who had a vested interest in seeing the movie go forward and stuff, who do have money, Ben and Matt. Then I wrote back and said, hey man, I could offer you $1 million, and was still told no. At that point, I was like, I can't do better than that. I found out he was looking for $5 million, which, to be fair, kids, if I had $5 million, I'd make a new movie. I wouldn't buy some old-ass fucking movie that I made already and shit. So nothing happened to it, just sat and languished for years. Fairly recently, this amazing woman, and kids, I'm gonna say her name because you want this woman in your life if you're a filmmaker. Alessandra Williams, motherfucking one of the best, most powerful manifestors I've ever met in my life. She saw me doing an interview talking about not being able to get Dogma free from fucking Harvey Weinstein. And she said, oh, I love that movie. People should be able to see it. So she rescued my movie. Alessandra rescued my movie about angels from the devil himself. And that's the only reason we're having this conversation about Dogma and how I've been touring it for the last month. Rollatini says, this line Matt Damon delivers to a greedy set of board members at a corporation is Kevin Smith's best line he's ever written. Do you know what makes a human being decent? Fear. And therein lies the problem. None of you have anything left to fear anymore. You rest comfortably in seats of inscrutable power, hiding behind your false idol, far from judgment, lives shrouded in secrecy even from one another, but not from God. Ooh, that is a good line. He ain't wrong. Rollatini's right, man. I didn't deliver it as well as Matt Damon, but that's a pretty fucking fire line.
Do you know what makes a human being decent? Fear. And therein lies the problem. None of you has anything left to fear anymore.
Ivor, E-Y-V-O-R, with those two umlaut, with the dots over the O, gives it 5 fucking stars. Attaboy, Ivor! And he says, when Silent Bob said no ticket, I felt that. I stole that from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. A lot of my work is stealing lines from better movies and having people I love say it.
No ticket.
Matt Singer, 3 stars. Fuck, Matt. What the fuck, man? Like, look, we can't all be Scorsese. It must be said that in this film, whose cast includes Ben Affleck, Matt Damon, Linda Fiorentino, Salma Hayek, Jason Lee, Alan Rickman, Chris Rock, George Carlin, Janine Garofalo, and Bud Cort, the best performance is given by Jason Mewes. You know what, Matt? You could give me 1 star because you fucking spoke truth. You know, Jason Mewes is in Clerks, Mallrats, and Chasing Amy, and he's wonderful in those movies. But he's transcendent in Dogma. That was where he became an actor. And he's so fucking great in the movie that by the end of that movie, I was like, I just want to make Jay and Silent Bob movies for the rest of my life. And so as I was sitting there watching the movie, I was like, recently on tour, I was like, now I know what happened. Like, I was meant to be a better filmmaker than I am, but I fell in love. So often happens, kids. You meet somebody, you fell in love, they sweep you off your feet, and your life plans change and shit. No regrets whatsoever, man. Fucking, his performance is fantastic. When we cast Alan Rickman in the movie, I told Jason Mewes, I was like, hey man, you can't fuck around on this Dogma picture. You can't be like fucking Clerks, Mars, Chasing Amy and shit, where I gotta like feed you lines and stuff like that. You gotta memorize your script. You gotta come correct, because we got real actors in the movie this time. He's like, who? I said, we got Alan Rickman. He goes, who's that? I said, he's fucking dude from Die Hard. And he goes, Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker? I was like, that's the other guy from Die Hard. No, not Bruce Willis. Fucking the bad guy, Hans Gruber. And he's like, why is that big thing? I was like, because fucking Alan Rickman is British, and the Brits invented acting, man. So, like, he will not fucking stand for your snoochie boochies nonsense and shit like that. Like, he is deadly serious on a fucking set. He's one of the greatest actors that ever lived. So if you don't know your lines, and you're humming in front of him and shit like that, and snoogans and snitch to the niche, that guy's gonna tear you apart in front of everybody, man. He'll let you know, if with a look or with words, with sardonic British words, that you're fucking up. So you gotta come correct. You gotta be fucking good in this movie. You gotta be better than you've ever been before. A month later, we're in Pittsburgh getting ready to shoot the movie, and I have a rehearsal with Jason by himself away from the rest of the cast. Before I integrate him with the normies, I want to make sure he can still handle where we're going. And so I sit him down and I said, where's your script? He goes, I don't need it. You know all his lines, all of his lines in the script. And I was like, you memorized all your lines? He goes, I memorized the whole script. Innocent as a fucking babe in the woods. He goes, I don't want to piss off that Rickman dude. Alan and Jason became hardcore friends. One of my favorite memories of any movie set I've ever been on is on Dogma. We're in the third act. I set up a shot. I was heading over to Snack Canyon, get some free M&Ms off the food table. The best part of a movie is free food. As I walk past the front of the church, I see this most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life. Jason Mewes and Alan Rickman sitting on the stage, deeply engaged in conversation. And I remember thinking, what the fuck could these two possibly have to say to one another? So I go over to Alan later on, and he's by himself, and I was like, hey man, if Jason Mewes is bothering you, I'll talk to him. And he goes, Jason Mewes could never bother me because Jason Mewes is the best that America can be. Swear to God. I was like, what? And he goes, Jason Mewes is an American icon. You just don't realize it yet. And so still to this day, like if I give Mewes direction he doesn't like, he'll be like, hey, which one of us is the American icon? Matthew Noble, we're back in the 4-star country, says, speaking as a vaguely agnostic man who was raised in a loosely Protestant household, Dogma might be the most intelligent, perceptive, and entertaining movie about Christianity I've ever seen since Monty Python's Life of Brian. That is high praise. Thank you very much, Matthew. I would point out, though, that Monty Python knew very well what they were doing. With tooth and nail, they went after organized religion. Our movie didn't. That's why I was always worried when people protested Dogma, because word was getting out like, this is that movie that goes after the fucking church, man, like Life of Brian. But it didn't go after the church like Life of Brian. It was actually a fairly reverent movie. Yeah, it raised a hairy eyebrow at the church from time to time, but it didn't have any of the teeth and fang that Life of Brian did. And I was worried that people would come in to see the movie and then be disappointed, going like, I heard this movie takes the piss out of the church. Instead, this motherfucker believes in all this shit. So I was always worried about that. But Life of Brian was always in my head when I was making the movie too. One of my favorite fucking films. David Cheek, 4 stars, says, was absolutely ecstatic to see that the winking, pointing Jesus meme originated from Dogma. How strange that there are some people that don't know the Buddy Christ came from that movie. You know, back in the day, 99, when the movie came out, people were like, you can't show that, you know, outside the movie. Catholics get real mad. Now, in 2025, it's our fucking poster. Like, the Buddy Christ, massive on the fucking poster, man. When they were showing me posters, I said, that looks like a Frida Kahlo image and shit. But it was the Buddy Christ. And then there were tiny images of our very famous cast all around it. Then there was another poster, which everybody was larger than life in a kind of Last Supper pose. And I said, let's go with the Buddy Christ poster. And they were like, why? I was like, we could never do that in 1999. We would have been fucking, pun intended, crucified. And they're like, yeah, but what about this poster's got all the famous people on it? I was like, who the fuck is more famous than fucking Jesus Christ? Smackle S'mores with 3.5 stars says, it's surprising how a film with a shit demon fight in the second act also has an incredibly complex and pretty thoughtful, optimistic message to it. It does. I quite like its take on religion and having ideas of God versus a belief system based on God. So I ain't telling anybody how to do their fucking job, and I know it ain't a job because it's like a hobby thing, but Smackle S'more, that reads like a 4-star review to me. David Fitzgerald, 4 stars, says, watching Dogma decades after its release, the surrounding controversy and its denouncement as blasphemy by Catholic groups seem very overblown. Hold my fucking beer, kid. If anything, I was impressed by Kevin Smith's knowledge of the Catholic faith and how he could use his knowledge to create a wild comedy film. Thank you, David Fitzgerald. I'll be honest with you, my kid never saw Dogma. You know, I'm not a person that, like, I don't force Kevin Smith movies on anybody, let alone fucking relatives, let alone blood relatives and shit. So I figured she'd get to it when she wanted to. And she finally got to it when we had the premiere. Our tour started on Easter Sunday, 4/20. And so she was there with her fiance, Austin Zager, who was he's the lead in my last movie, the 4:30 movie. He played a young version of me. If you haven't seen the 4:30 movie, kids, it's a movie about love and movies. It's very basic. And no, you know, it ain't an Ari Aster movie or something like that where people are like, how profound. It's pretty basic. Anybody could have made it, but it's very, very sweet, and it loves movies, wears its heart on its sleeve. So anyway, Austin never saw Dogma, and he goes, I loved it. He's going, it's kind of like biblical Avengers. And I was like, you know what? I could see that. Yeah, kind of. He goes, why didn't you advertise it like that? And I was like, because the Avengers wouldn't come out for another like 15 years. He goes, oh yeah, you're right. Go see Dogma June 5th in theaters everywhere, AKA Biblical Avengers. You know how fucking Thunderbolts was like, no, we're the new Avengers. I'm going to rip my title off and be like, Biblical Avengers, man. You throw Avengers in the title, people come. Kids, from one old filmmaker to a bunch of filmmakers, some of whom have made films, like Vera Drew, and some who are filmmakers who just haven't made their film yet. I encourage you, as much as it's fun to watch other people's movies, I'll tell you like I told my kid when she was little. My kid would watch iCarly all the time, and I was an irritating parent who would say this kind of shit. It's fun to watch iCarly. It's way more fun to write iCarly. You should go write one. So hang out, if you will, talk about movies and shit like that. But anybody who talks about movies as incessantly as y'all, guess what? You're filmmakers. You just haven't made your film yet. Imagine you were the one with the story and they were giving you 3.5 fucking green stars. You walking with that pride and shit like that. You go upstairs, tell your wife, I got 3.5 green stars from fucking Smackle S'more. And she's like, take off them jorts. Take off them jean shorts, buddy. I wish you all your dreams to come true. Letterboxd, I'll be back next time I have something to sell.